Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. I'm TCaptainX. The settings that I'm about to share with you guys are honestly an unfair advantage to hear footsteps so much better in Call of Duty Warzone 2.
Enemy UAV overhead.
On my roof. Another one?
About to end. Make it count.
Climbing ladder, climbing ladder. What'd I say? Can hear it clear as day. And the amount of wall hack accusations I've gotten since using these settings have increased dramatically. It's that big of a difference. All right, outside here. Now let me cut right to the chase here if you're a console player. No, you will not be able to get the full effect and full benefit out of these settings, but I will provide you guys with the next best thing that you can do. I also want to say that the genius behind these settings is not myself, but my friend Art is War. So let's jump right into the in-game settings, and this is going to apply for everybody here, PC or console. And first, let's start with the audio mix. So I have tested pretty much all of these extensively, and I can confidently say that PC is going to be the best option for hearing footsteps when it comes to the audio mix. Now in Warzone 1, we always ran home theater, and the reason for that is home theater has a very wide dynamic range, meaning that footsteps should be able to be heard through other loud noises like explosions and gunshots and stuff like that. PC is the opposite. PC has a very tight dynamic range, and with Warzone 2, the way they have their audio mix set up, that tight dynamic range is necessary in order to hear footsteps because they are just not loud enough on a wide dynamic range like home theater. As far as master volume goes, this is going to be somewhat of a personal preference type thing. Personally, I have found turning it down to the 60 to 70 range has been my sweet spot, but this depends on your headphones levels and other things like that. Now, going into the show more setting, very important for competitive purposes that we have both music volumes, the gameplay and cinematic, turned down to 0, as this doesn't do anything in terms of helping us hear footsteps. Dialogue volume, that has to do with things like enemy UAV overhead or hostile landing nearby. I like to turn this down a little bit near 40. That way you can still hear it, but it's not overpowering where it might drown out other noises like footsteps. Now, it's very important that your effects volume is left at 100, as this is the sub mix or sub audio mix where footsteps come through. So you do not want to turn this down. Voice chat volume, this is hearing your teammates and things like that. This is personal preference. I find it to be pretty loud, so I like to turn it down a bit all the way down to 30. Now, your speakers and headphones game sound device is going to depend. If you're on console, it's probably just going to be whatever your headset is labeled. For myself, it's a little bit different. We're going to explain that a little bit later in the video. Your speaker output is probably just going to be default, and the reason it kicked me out of that screen is because of a custom setting that I'm going to discuss a little bit later in the video. To quickly go through the rest of the in-game audio settings here, I have all my voice chat stuff on. I'm on push to talk. Your microphone is probably the same as your headset. For myself, it's a little bit different because I'm using a dual PC audio setup here. I do have my subtitles off. That way it's just not distracting, but you can leave those on if you want. Definitely make sure your mono audio is off. I do leave the tinnitus, reduced tinnitus sound option on. This reduces some of that ringing that you get from like a flash grenade, and it just makes it a little bit more pleasant on the ears. And then I have my hit marker sound left as classic, but I will show you guys how to turn down the hit marker sound volume later here near the end of the video. So if you're on PlayStation, unfortunately, your ride ends here. There's not really much else you guys can do. You can mess around with custom EQ if you have like a Turtle Beach amp that you can do that. I'm not sure if SteelSeries is able to be applied to PlayStation or not. They have a custom EQ mix that I believe works on Xbox, but I'm not sure if it does on PlayStation as well. So you can try messing with that, but this is unfortunately kind of as good as it gets for you guys. Now, if you're on Xbox, you will have an option to use something called Dolby Access or Dolby Atmos. This is in the Microsoft store. I believe it's $10 or $15 to buy. But essentially, once you have it installed, yours might look a little bit different than me or than mine. You're going to get it all set up, connected as basically, walk through the steps. And then just make sure you're on the game mode with performance mode on. This helps a good amount with picking out directionality of where footsteps are coming from. It's not like an, oh my gosh, night and day difference, but I have played with this myself on PC, and it does help a good amount. So if you're on Xbox, that's as much as you can do here. Your ride ends here as well. I'm sorry to the console players. If you're on PC though, this is where stuff gets juicy, and I want to reiterate that the rest of this stuff all comes from Art is War and his custom audio settings that he did. I had the privilege of testing his audio stuff about a week or two early before he released it to the public, and I was kind of just there to be an extra set of ears to kind of confirm how well they worked, and it has been night and day difference for hearing footsteps. So there's 3 things you need to download on PC in order for this to work. Number 1, first, do not get Dolby Access or Dolby Atmos. If you have it, turn it off. We do not want to use that with settings. First, you're going to download something called Equalizer APO. This has to do with how we custom EQ everything. Second, Hasuvi, which is an app that does with the surround sound. And then third, Replugs, which these are the compressors and whatnot that get applied in that custom APO. So this is what the Hasuvi app looks like. Basically, we're using the Atmos -.wave, and then everything is default except LFE is down to 0, stereo upmix, and then the stereo content format. Now, this is the Equalizer APO, and this part's a little bit confusing, and Artist Ward does a great job of explaining how to set this up. So I'm going to leave that to his video, but I'm just going to give you guys a brief overview of how this works so you understand the concept. Essentially, Art has his custom EQ stuff that you're going to download into this, and basically it's applying some peaking filters on certain frequencies that are, these are kind of where the footsteps are heard the most, and we're basically making those frequencies louder to hear the footsteps. And then we're applying some of these compressor plugins, which are going to kind of bring down some of those loud noises we don't want to hear, like gunshots and explosions, so that you can hear footsteps better. Now, if you remember back in season 1 of Warzone, we used something called loudness EQ to help with footsteps, and in season 2 it wasn't that good. Well, it is back again in season 3, and it helps a lot with hearing footsteps. So right click on your sound settings, go to your open sound settings here, go to your sound control panel here, and in your playback devices, whatever your default device that you're using is, right click on that, go to properties, go to the enhancements tab, and then click on loudness EQ and make sure this is checked. While it's highlighted, go to the settings and make sure the release time is all the way on short. Hit OK and then hit apply. Now, if you do not have this enhancement tab on yours, there's a few options what you can do. I did not have it when I had my headphones plugged straight into my PC. So what my headphones are plugged into actually is my monitor. So that's why this LC27G7X, that is my monitor. And for whatever reason, it's supported there. Art has an entire video dedicated on how to get this enhancements tab to pop up if it's not. So I'll make sure to link that in the description as well. But for me, I plugged it into the monitor and it worked just fine. Now, there is one more final setting that we can adjust, and this is going to be in our game files itself here. So go open your file explorer, go to your documents, go to Call of Duty, players, and then we're looking for the options.3.cod22. Open that. It might have another prompt, and just open that with the notepad. So at the top here, this second line, number of output channels requested by user, not necessarily the actual account, etc., etc. For yours, it's probably going to be 0. We're going to change that to 16. Now, Art explained this, that this might be somewhat of a placebo effect, but essentially what this is doing is it should be forcing your game to run in surround sound. So you're going to get better directionality of where audio is. One other thing that is optional that you can change if you want is your hit markers volume. We used to have a slider for this in game. They took it out at some point. Yours is probably going to be set to 1, but Art recommended turning it down to 0.5. That way your hit markers are just not quite as loud, and they're not going to be kind of blocking or obtruding hearing footsteps. When you're done doing that, make sure you hit file and make sure you hit save. So one quick way to check if you put in those game files correctly, your speaker output will, as soon as you hover over it, like I just did there, is going to just auto kick you out and it's going to be blank. So see how I hover over it? That means you put everything correctly and it's working. Now, I do want to briefly touch on the headphones or the IEMs that I'm using. These are the Truth Ear Critical Zeros. They're $50 on Amazon. And overall, I've really liked using these compared to normal over-the-ear headphones. I'm not going to say there's some night and day difference where you absolutely need to go get IEMs. But if you're in the market for a new pair of headphones and you play mostly competitive FPS games where footsteps are very important, like Warzone, I think they're worth investing. They're not overly expensive. And in terms of just purely hearing footsteps, I think they have a slight edge over normal headphones. So again, I want to reiterate that all of this custom stuff is from Artist Ward, and I'm going to link his video as the pinned comment and at the top of the description. And he does an excellent job of walking through exactly how to set this stuff up. He's got all the download links in that video. The reason why I wanted to do this was I just wanted to be honest and say, hey, this is what I'm using. This is what helps. And I wanted to kind of spread awareness to Art, because he is probably one of the most underrated creators in the Warzone community right now. He has put out some phenomenal content that just help improve your gameplay experience of Warzone 2. Warzone 2, it's a great game, but there's a lot of things that are messed up and broken about it. And Art's goal is basically trying to fix those things, like the audio. Now, if this seems way too confusing for you, he is offering one-on-one consultations where you can schedule a time with him through his Discord, and he will basically remote into your PC and install all this stuff for you and set it up for you. So if you're just like confused out of your mind, you can go with that option, but you would have to pay for that. It is free, however, to download all this stuff otherwise and set it up yourself. So that's going to wrap things up, guys. Good luck with this audio settings. Like I said, it makes a huge difference. Reminder, everything will be pinned for the links to Artist Wars channel and his video. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope it helped. We'll see you in the next one.